What if Mega Garchomp was in Gen 1 OU? Now, a year ago, I went over regular Garchomp, and surprise, surprise, it was pretty good. Obviously, you have a crippling weakness to Blizzard, but when you have stats this high, obviously you're going to find a way around it. Especially when you have very great moves such as Stab Earthquake, Sword Stance, Hyper Beam. There's just one issue. When I made that video, I overlooked some things. First of all, with such a high speed stat at 102, with a great crit rate, using Sword Stance is kind of pointless, because you already hit really hard without it, and Pokemon like Tauros certainly don't need Sword Stance. Not to mention, you're just leaving yourself vulnerable. And Hyper Beam. That is 150 base power, which is powerful, but there's a reason Rhydon doesn't use Hyper Beam. Stab Earthquake hits literally just as hard. So with the video, Garchomp was using a very unoptimized moveset. I could make a revisited video, and I probably will make that for Garchomp eventually, but for now, let's go after the Mega Form instead. That sounds like a lot more fun, because you still have the really great 108 base HP, but everything else gets buffed, and it's really significant. Or minus your speed, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. You go from, I believe it's 108 defense to 115. That's honestly pretty good. You go from 85 special defense to 95. And since it's been a while since I made these videos, friendly reminder, I can't actually mod anything or code. And when you put these in Gen 1 custom games, it uses both the special attack and the special defense. But still, 95 is Jinx's special, so very specially tanky. And you go from 85 special attack to 120, which is huge, because Fire Blast is definitely one of Garchomp's best coverage moves. Not just for hitting things such as Exeggutor, and since you're not really using Hyper Beam, Fire Blast is probably your best bet. So having a high special attack move, or having a high special attack, I mean, it's just good. Not to mention, against Snorlax, that's really good for the burn chance. Tauros, you're kind of scared of Tauros, but at the same time, Tauros would be scared of your Fire Blast. So that's honestly just really good. And yes, the speed, it is unfortunate that you are slower than regular Garchomp. However, it's very important to note that there's only two things this affects: Zapdos and Jinx. Because you're even tankier physically, Zapdos hates you even more, so you're never scared of Zapdos. And I'm gonna be real with you. Sure, Garchomp could outspeed Jinx and use Earthquake, or Rock Slide, or Fire Blast, but it's not gonna do that much. And by that, I mean it's not gonna be a guaranteed OHKO. If it's not a guaranteed OHKO, Jinx's Stab Blizzard is gonna demolish you. So because of that, I feel like it doesn't really matter that you're slower than Jinx. You're going to avoid Jinx at all cost. And if you are fighting Jinx, that probably means that it's paralyzed and already taken chip damage. And at that point, it doesn't matter what your base speed is. So overall, its stats are not even an improvement, not even an A+, it's just straight up overkill. These stats are absolutely insane for Gen 1. And the move pool is also just as good. The 4 moves you see here, I think, are just by far the best. With Stab Earthquake, you're basically just spamming Hyper Beams. The only things that don't care about your Earthquake are Exeggutor and Zapdos. Zapdos is immune to Earthquake entirely, and like I said, you don't really care about it. Technically, Hyper Beam could be used against Exeggutor, but without a crit or Sword Stance, it's not gonna kill. And Sword Stance is really bad on Garchomp. So, Fire Blast is good enough, but I've already talked about how good Fire Blast is. And Rock Slide, I'm gonna be real, you're not really using it on Jinx because you're slower. Cloyster is so physically tanky that Fire Blast is better. So you're only using Rock Slide for Zapdos and Zapdos exactly. Which is more than enough, really. So the vast majority of the metagame, you're only using Earthquake. And yeah, outside of Exeggutor and Zapdos, everything fears your Earthquake. And the last move is Substitute. which I didn't really go over with my original video, but Substitute on Garchomp is so busted. Way more busted than Sword Stance. Because with 92 speed, you are super fast and are probably critting a lot of things anyways. But Substitute, you have 108 HP. That means that when you go for Substitute, it takes 2 Nightshades or 2 Seismic Tosses to break it. So already Chansey is just needs Ice Beam exactly in order to beat you. And even with that, with Substitute, you could always try to check and see if it has Ice Beam. And it's not like Chansey can use a different move as a bluff. Thunderbolt, Garchomp is immune to. Seismic Toss is, like I said, can't break the sub. You go for a Substitute, Chansey either breaks it immediately or can't. And if it can't, it's either getting crit or getting 2 KO'd by Earthquake. So, Substitute alone is enough to take care of Chansey and Snorlax. Because Substitute also can handle Snorlax's Body Slam. And is it Amnesia-Lax? Is it going for Amnesia? Or is it going for Ice Beam immediately? Substitute also allows you to just scout out what Snorlax has as well. And if it's a Physical Lax set, you straight up win. If it's a Amnesia-Lax or a Mix Attacker set, if Snorlax goes for Ice Beam, Garchomp can survive 1 Ice Beam from Snorlax. I believe it does 60%. So technically you can even survive 1 with a sub, or sub damage, and then take another Ice Beam, I'm pretty sure. So Snorlax needs Amnesia to OHKO. So that means even if Snorlax goes for a Body Slam, a Substitute is probably going to tank that, and Garchomp can probably have another unboosted Ice Beam. So Garchomp could just win the 1v1. So, yeah, I just can't believe I never really explored Substitute in the past. But it's broken. And so many other things that would normally be a threat to Garchomp fear it with the protection of Substitute. Tauros has Blizzard. It does not want to get burnt by Fire Blast. And obviously Earthquake hits really hard. Jinx is another Pokemon that is really scared of you with a Substitute up. Because Fire Blast, Rock Slide, or even Stab Earthquake all do so much damage to Jinx. And if Jinx just gets crit, it's dead. Cloyster, or no, even Cloyster does not want to deal with 2 Fire Blasts. That in itself does a lot of damage. And considering it's Blizzard, there's always a chance of it missing, which just makes Substitute even more broken. So, I think this is a perfect moveset, where you Earthquake everything, but you have coverage for the 2 things exactly that can deal with that. But you have other moves as well. But I seriously cannot stress enough that Sword Stance is not very good. Neither is Slash. Because Hyper Beam is just a little bit stronger than Slash, which means Stab Earthquake is the exact same. So you would only be using Slash on Executor exactly. And you don't care about doing extra damage to Executor or Zapdos, because the coverage is always better. I suppose Body Slam could be used as an alternative over Rock Slide, because you're already so tanky that you can substitute off Drill Packs. But unlike Rhydon, you're not using Leer to make it faster. So I could definitely see the merit, and I do think you will see Body Slam. But just not better than Rock Slide, I don't think. I think you'd rather just take it on quickly with Rock Slide, killing it faster. Because keep in mind, Zapdos can crit. And crits are... Luckily, Garchomp's so good they're only annoying, but definitely not something you have to deal with if you don't need to. So overall, just a beast. And yes, it's slower than regular Garchomp, but I think very few people will argue that Mega Garchomp isn't just strictly superior to Garchomp. At least in this context. And probably in both Gen 4 and Gen 5, I probably would say Mega Garchomp would be better than regular Garchomp, but it's only because of permanent weather. Also, I'm just gonna say this now. A lot of people seem to disagree with me, but I think Mega Garchomp looks cool. I don't know what you guys are talking about. It reminds me a lot of Gigan. But that's about it. Let's just get on to the replays. Starting off with the boy himself, we got Tauros. And Blizzard hits really hard. But to be honest, I think it's really surprising that Garchomp stays in yellow health. But Earthquake not even being a guaranteed 2-hit KO is really shocking. At the same time, you're avoiding Tauros at all costs, and with it's paralyzed anyways. And you could thread it with Burn. It's still unwinnable, but it could be worse. Now, like I said, you can survive a substitute, which is huge. Snorlax, it really struggles against you if it's just a physical X set. So what does it really do? Not much. And with a low crit rate, it's obviously not gonna, get those crits a lot either. Not like it even matters. And I didn't have it here, but I will say that a critical Fire Blast does 2-hit KO Snorlax, which I was not expecting. But then again, 120 special attack is just huge. And like I said, you can get burns off Fire Blast. And if that happens, yeah, that is just 11% off Body Slam. You're just doing great, and you can handle anything, really. And this is just super tanky without getting a crit. Crits! It doesn't matter if it's Fire Blast or Earthquake. Like, even a critical Fire Blast on Starmie or Slowbro, I would imagine that's pretty decent damage. And yes, getting the burn on both would suck, but at the same time, especially for Starmie, Earthquake does a lot of damage, so you can't really stall out Garchomp, even if it's burned, which is definitely something to consider. Now, we still have some more Snorlax. Or not Snorlax, Chansey. I got the replay wrong, but it doesn't matter. Because this is really in Garchomp's favor. Chansey gets 2-hit KO'd by Earthquake. A crit obviously kills it. So, you can always just use Sub to scout out what the Chansey has. Same with the Snorlax. And by doing that, it's easily in your favor. So, there's not much that these guys can really do against you. I'd argue that, like, as you can see there, even when they have good coverage, Garchomp can survive at least one Ice Beam from both of them. So that even means, even if you catch the Garchomp off guard, it has the potential to be fine. As long as you substitute before seeing what they have, then you can handle whatever they have. Like, obviously, like, Earthquake would have been like I don't think it's a guaranteed 2-hit KO against Snorlax. But still, even getting just one Earthquake in before switching to your Ice Resistance, that's more than enough. And Chansey can go for Reflect, but even with Reflect, it might not always work. Because you just have a really great crit rate. And even with Reflect up, I'd say that's pretty decent damage. Fire Blast, getting burned, it's whatever. But even then, like, I don't know, I just find it amusing. I expected the replay to go on a lot longer, but at any point a crit just kills. I was gonna see if Earthquake could have stalled out Reflect Chansey, but I forgot you don't need to. And that's just amazing, isn't it? So this might be controversial, since obviously Ice Beam messes up Garchomp a lot. But for both Chansey and Snorlax, I'm going to say they're both good matchups. Am I going too far? Let me know in the comments below, but I think that's fair. Psychic does, I would say good damage, and I guess technically with crits and special drops, it can always be a threat to Garchomp. But I would say Garchomp definitely has more advantages in the fight than Alakazam does. But I'll be nice and call it Cuckoo either way. This, on the other hand, I'm going to say just completely unwinnable. Cloyster, like, Stab Wizard, and probably even Stab Ice Beam are just way too much for Garchomp to handle. And I know some people act like quad weaknesses are like a death sentence in these videos. And for Hisuian and Arcanine, probably. Both Moscato and Sotina made it clear to me that there's a lot of Pokemon with both Earthquake and Water moves in NU. So Hisuian and Arcanine probably wouldn't even be that great there either. And to be honest, with those weaknesses, they even said it could be manageable in PU as well. But that's just not the case for Mega Garchomp. The quadruple weakness to Blizzard is what balances it out. And even then, I'm pretty sure you can make a decent argument that Mega Garchomp is still too much for the meta to handle. Let's just keep going. Here's Executor. Fire Blast hits pretty hard. It's almost a 2 KO. And yes, special drops can be annoying, but even with a special drop, it's still more than enough to finish off Executor. So, special drops are the only way Garchomp is even a little bit threatened, and most likely you just don't risk it at all. And whatever you switch into, probably a Fire Blast resist. Even then, Garchomp can do some damage. Like, let's say you switch into Starmie, you're gonna see that Earthquake does a lot of damage to Starmie. So, yeah, who knows? One thing I do know is that Gengar is not doing anything to Garchomp. The only hope it has is getting a special drop, but even then, what's it really accomplishing with that? Garchomp just absolutely annihilates Gengar. Alright, next up, I believe this is Jolteon. Yes, I am. And yeah, I saw that there was Reflect on Jolteon. I figured it'd be more fun just to show if it can survive Earthquake without it, and yes, it can. But doesn't really matter, obviously not. That was a pin muzzle to hit for 5, it did absolutely nothing. Garchomp is just way too much to handle for Jolteon. But don't think any of you are really surprised about that. Now, I consider making replays with a Paralyzed Jinx versus the Garchomp, but I figured it was just ultimately unnecessary. I don't think I need to explain to you that Earthquake, Rock Slide, Fire Blast, all 3 of these do a lot of damage to Jinx, to the point where Jinx is just gonna probably beat you if it's unparalyzed, but Jinx is always a lead anyways, and if it isn't obvious already, Garchomp is a late game cleaner when the rest of the team is paralyzed. So, for the most part, this matchup is irrelevant. Well, by the way, let's just talk about that for a little bit. Garchomp, or especially Mega Garchomp, might just be one of the most terrifying Pokemon you have to face paralyzed out of everything I've ever covered. If your team is paralyzed and they reveal Mega Garchomp, you're just screwed. So, like, the more I'm talking about this, the more I'm leaning towards Mega Garchomp being banned to Ubers. And while I did make replays for both Mew and Mewtwo, you better believe Mega Garchomp's great at Ubers as well. Okay, it's lagging a little bit, I'm not sure why. But luckily it's just Rhydon, so you're not missing much. Unfortunately, Rhydon hits hard enough to where Substitute is always gonna break, but it doesn't matter. Earthquake is a very easy 2 KO, but could just as easily be a OHKO with a crit as well. Rhydon is so scared of Garchomp, and since Garchomp doesn't take anything from Drill Pick either, it can even just take over. Actually, wait, it has high defense as well. Is Mega Garchomp just strictly a better Rhydon? Is there anything Rhydon does better? I guess it isn't as weak to ice moves, but I'm not sure if that makes a big difference. Next up is Slowbro. And considering you 3-hit KO, you can never go for Amnesia with Slowbro, it just takes too much damage. And if Slowbro rests, that gives Garchomp a free chance to go for Substitute. And under a Substitute, Garchomp can beat pretty much anything 1v1. So what do you do here? I guess you just go straight for Surf, but even going straight for Surf leads to the same outcome. Garchomp hits you way too hard, you need to go for Rest, and when you go for Rest, Garchomp gets a free sub up. So it's just completely unwinnable if you're a Slowbro player. Well, thank God for that, because Slowbro is not a very fun Pokemon to go against. Unless you're me, because I absolutely love Jolteon and Zapdos. Alright, Starmie. Blizzard hits really hard, but Earthquake is a 2-hit KO. If Starmie is paralyzed, then Garchomp can win. If Starmie has literally any move other than Blizzard, Garchomp probably wins really easily. So, I'm gonna call it a bad matchup, because it's Starmie, it always has Blizzard, and with Garchomp around, it's obviously gonna have Blizzard even more. But still, there are times where Garchomp can take advantage of the situation. And the same thing goes for Victory Bell. It can definitely take advantage of a Victory Bell. You can't sub underneath it, unfortunately. But I'm not sure why Victory Bell stays in front of you anyways. You just beat it very easily. And last but not least, we have Zapdos. And I've already said what I had to say about Zapdos. it is not hitting hard enough to do a lot of damage with Drill Peck, which means you can actually afford to go for Substitute, which is huge. Everything is scared of you when you're under a Substitute. So, yeah, that's just good for Garchomp. Well, here's the tier list, and if it isn't clear already, this guy is amazing. Like, there's a reason why even regular Garchomp got banned at Ubers for its debut generation. And actually, I think I'm fine with keeping Chansey in. Well, could Chansey be actually, no. I think Chansey being a good matchup is going too far. Because Ice Beam is way more common than it is on Snorlax. And it really does threaten you a lot. Not to mention, if you go for a Substitute, then you can't survive an Ice Beam. So I guess at that point, you're better off going for a crit. And it doesn't matter. Because either way, like, even with Crit Go Either Way, it's, like, to the point where I feel like Garchomp can always very easily outmaneuver the Chansey. So it doesn't matter in the long run. So that's just one of the best Pokemon I've covered. And I don't think anyone's surprised, because it's Garchomp. In fact, the only thing I think is surprising is the fact that it can work around its ice weakness so well. Because, like, normally when I do Pokemon like these, such as Landorus Therian, or like Mega Salamence, it's really hard to work around that quadruple ice weakness. But I think Snap Earthquake really shows just how much it can help you. But what do you think? Do you think the Blizzard weakness would be too much for Garchomp? Do you think it would be one of the best Pokemon in OU? Or do you think it will be too much and get banned from OU? Let me know in the comments below. But until next time, this is GroundBack, and I look forward to hearing from you.